NASCAR's Atlanta weekend was a masterclass in incompetence. Two races, two last lap wrecks, two completely different decisions from race control. If fans were looking for consistency, they were sorely mistaken because NASCAR once again proved that their rulebook is written in disappearing ink. On Saturday, the Xfinity Series race saw a pileup in Turn 2 on the final lap, yet NASCAR inexplicably kept the race green. Drivers swerved through the wreckage at full speed while Austin Hill sped across the line to claim victory. Safety? Apparently not a priority. Let the race finish, let the fans have their moment. That seemed to be the logic. Then came Sunday's Cup Series race. Deja vu? Not quite. A wreck on the backstretch during the final lap behind the leaders should have been handled the same way, right? Wrong. NASCAR threw the caution instantly, freezing the field and handing Christopher Bell an uncontested victory. The fight to the finish was stolen, leaving Carson Hocevar and Kyle Larson fuming over what could have been. If both wrecks happened behind the leaders, why was one ignored and the other called immediately? NASCAR's failure to apply its own rules consistently turned the Cup race into a farce. Are they making these calls based on safety, or are they just making it up as they go? Fans deserve answers, but as usual, NASCAR is too busy covering their own tracks to provide them. NASCAR had a golden opportunity to correct its mistake after the Xfinity debacle. Instead, they overreacted in the Cup race, proving they have no grasp of consistency. Elton Sawyer, NASCAR's senior VP of competition, attempted to assure the public, "We'll be more aggressive with our calls today. A situation like Saturday night will be a caution." That promise rang hollow. Rather than applying balanced officiating, NASCAR swung the other way, prematurely throwing the caution flag and denying fans the finish they deserved. The wreck was behind the leaders, just like in Xfinity, but this time, they chose interference over competition. One day, NASCAR ignored a wreck and let chaos unfold. The next, they preemptively ended the battle for the win. Instead of learning, they created a new controversy. Their decision-making is a joke, and their credibility is in shambles. How can drivers trust race control when even NASCAR doesn't know what it's doing? With just a few corners to go, the Cup Series race was building to a thrilling conclusion until NASCAR intervened and stole the finish. The wreck on the backstretch was well behind the leaders, meaning the front runners had a clear path to the checkered flag. In any other circumstance, the race would have finished under green, just like the Xfinity race the day before. But instead, NASCAR slammed the brakes on their own product, throwing an unnecessary caution and freezing the field. Carson Hocevar, who was making his move for the win, expressed his frustration. "I didn't realize we weren't racing back to the line. I hit the 20 to get him out of the way and fill the middle. Little bit longer, maybe we win the race." Had NASCAR let them race, we could have seen an epic three-way battle to the line between Hocevar, Christopher Bell, and Kyle Larson. Instead, NASCAR ended the race on a technicality, removing the competitive spirit from the finish and handing Bell a victory. Kyle Larson, who finished third, was equally frustrated. "Just didn't get the caution to come out late enough until I got the run back to the inside. Came up a little bit short, but proud of the effort today." This wasn't about safety. This was about NASCAR overcompensating for their mistake in Xfinity, where they let a wreck unfold without intervention. Instead of finding balance, they panicked and overcorrected, proving once again that race control has no firm grasp on when and how to end a race fairly. NASCAR had an easy call to make, and they still got it wrong. Fans were left stunned by how quickly NASCAR jumped the gun. Had they waited just a second longer, they would have allowed the leaders a natural finish. But NASCAR refuses to learn from its mistakes. Instead, they traded one problem for another, robbing drivers and fans of the most exciting part of the race, the battle for the win. The reality is that NASCAR can't make up its mind. Their indecision and constant inconsistency have destroyed trust in race control. When does it end? How many more races will be decided by knee-jerk reactions instead of actual competition? The controversy didn't end at the checkered flag. Drivers and fans erupted in frustration over NASCAR's blatant inconsistency. What started as a promising Cup race turned into yet another example of NASCAR's incompetent and reactionary officiating. Drivers weren't shy about voicing their displeasure. Carson Hocevar, who was in position to fight for the win, was left shaking his head. "I didn't even get a shot. We were still racing, but I guess NASCAR had other ideas." The fans didn't hold back either. Social media exploded with complaints about NASCAR's decision to pull the plug on a battle to the finish line. On Reddit and X, fans pointed out the hypocrisy. How was the Xfinity wreck ignored, but this one wasn't? One fan put it bluntly: "So in Xfinity, you let them race through a wreck, but in Cup, you throw a caution before they can fight for the win? Make it make sense, NASCAR." Instead of excitement, the race ended with boos from the crowd. NASCAR had once again robbed the sport of its defining moment, a true battle to the finish. Their inconsistency is killing the integrity of competition, and fans are sick of it. It wasn't just social media. Fans at the track were livid. As Christopher Bell did his victory burnout, a chorus of boos rained down from the grandstands. They didn't care who won, they cared that NASCAR interfered. They cared that the best part of the race, the finish, was stolen from them. Former drivers and analysts joined the outrage. Dale Earnhardt Jr., speaking on his podcast, said, "NASCAR can't keep doing this. Fans pay to see a race, not a scripted ending. If they're gonna throw a caution every time there's a wreck, just stop calling it racing." His words echoed the sentiment of millions. NASCAR isn't just making bad calls, they're ruining their own sport. How long before fans stop watching entirely? At the core of the controversy is a simple fact. NASCAR made two completely opposite calls in two nearly identical situations. Their inability to maintain consistency has sparked outrage from drivers, teams, and fans alike. It's not just bad luck, it's bad officiating, and it's killing the credibility of the sport. If NASCAR believed a caution should have been thrown in the Xfinity race, they would have ended that race under yellow. But they let that race play out under green. If NASCAR truly believed in letting races finish under green, they wouldn't have prematurely stopped the Cup race. The double standard couldn't be more obvious. Instead, they contradicted themselves, making the Xfinity finish look reckless and the Cup finish look overmanaged. This kind of erratic officiating is exactly why NASCAR constantly gets criticized for picking and choosing when to throw cautions. Juicin Hamilton, a NASCAR race director, even admitted on NASCAR's own Holler Talk podcast that they sometimes throw late race cautions too quickly. That's one when you look back, I would say we could do it differently. But that's looking back now on a Tuesday, going back on all our reviews and having the luxury and time to review the full situation. This proves that NASCAR's decisions aren't based on a clear rulebook, but rather a guessing game in the moment. That's not race control, that's race manipulation. NASCAR had an easy call to make, and they still got it wrong. Until they fix their officiating, fans will keep questioning whether the results are truly earned or simply dictated by bad decision-making. This goes beyond just one weekend in Atlanta. This is about NASCAR's long-standing pattern of inconsistent race officiating. These decisions aren't isolated incidents, they are symptoms of a larger problem that has existed for years. NASCAR constantly finds itself in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons, and its inability to apply fair and consistent rules is damaging the sport's credibility. Cautions thrown too early when they should wait. Cautions held too long when they should act immediately. Different standards applied depending on the series, the race, or who's leading. This unpredictability doesn't just frustrate fans, it affects the legitimacy of race results. How many more races will be influenced by questionable officiating? If NASCAR can't even be consistent from one day to the next, how can teams and drivers trust them to get it right when it matters most? The sport's most passionate supporters are growing tired of the nonsense. When fans see their favorite driver robbed of a fair shot at victory due to an unnecessary caution, or, conversely, watch chaos unfold due to race control's inaction, frustration builds. It's a recipe for long-term disillusionment, and NASCAR is already seeing the warning signs: declining ratings, dwindling attendance, and a growing lack of trust in race control. NASCAR needs to take a hard look at how it governs its races. Until it implements a clear, transparent, and fair system of officiating, every controversial finish will only add to the growing resentment. The sport's future hinges on its ability to restore trust, but so far, they've shown no indication that they even understand the problem. What is your opinion about this? Let us know in the comments below.